Okay, today we're going to look at the Blob Brush and the Eraser tool. Now you guys have worked with the pen tool, the pencil tool, and the brush tool. So now we're going to look at the Blob Brush tool. So the Blob Brush tool is actually underneath your paintbrush tool. So if you click and hold on your paintbrush tool, it'll open up this window and the Blob Brush tool is right beneath it. The shortcuts on how to increase or decrease the size of your brush are the brackets, which are next to the letter P on your keyboard. So we have the left bracket makes it smaller and the right bracket makes it a little larger. So I'm going to just paint a little squiggle and I'm going to select this. Now I'm going to zoom in so we can see the difference. Now, if you'll notice, when I select the path that I drew with the blob brush tool, there's multiple anchors creating a shape. So you'll notice there's anchors on the outside, an anchor path, and anchor path on the inside. So it actually creates a shape, not just a line or a path. And we can actually click on these points and edit our shape. If you had noticed with the pen tool created lines. And they created a vector path, but it's all on the same anchor points. There's not double. Same with our brush tool. It created a single vector path, whereas our blob brush tool creates two, creating a vector shape. So the difference between your blob brush and your regular paintbrush is that your blob brush creates a shape, whereas your paintbrush creates a path. So not only does the blob brush tool allow us to create vector shapes, it allows us to add to them too. So if I take my blob brush tool and I draw on top of my shape that I already have, and then I take my selection tool, you'll notice that it actually connected my new line into it. So what's really interesting about the blob brush tool is not only does it allow us to create shapes, but it allows us to continue editing our shapes and adding to them. So I can even fill in areas if I want it to. And then when I select it, you'll notice that it is all now the shape. So that's something that's pretty unique about the blob brush tool. Now, because it is a vector shape, you can actually add color just like you would to anything else. So that's color on the stroke. Come over here. You can add color to it. You can also open up my swatches. You can also add gradients to it if you have them in your swatch panel. If you don't, usually if you're missing swatches, you can always go to your open swatch library and you click on that, and now I have a little panel of all my gradients. So I can select on different gradients. There we go. There's one we can see. So it goes from light to dark. If you ever want to adjust your gradient, so see how the orange is really light here and it goes over to red. If you should be able to double click on it. That didn't work. Okay, open up your gradients panel. There you are. And if you'll notice, I can move the darker over more and even bring the light over. So more is light, less is dark. You can also double click on this and you can actually change the color. If I want to go from, let's say, a yellow, no, not green, even though that looks kind of cool. You can change the color. So that's how you adjust your gradients if you were unaware. It's actually pretty easy. So I really like this color because I like teal. But let's say I want a little bit lighter. So I'll come in here to my gradients tool, which you can also find under window. If you don't have a panel open, remember you can go to Windows, go down to your panel and find your gradients panel there. So I want to make this a little bit lighter. See? And you can just play around with your gradients. But anyways, just like any other vector shape, we can add a stroke, we can add a fill, we can add gradients, we can do whatever we want to this. So when using your Blob Brush tool, I'm going to reset back to our, oops. Okay, I'm going to reset back to our default black and white. And I'm going to use the Blob Brush tool. What is going on? Okay, black and white, black fill. Why is it doing that? Okay. All right, so I have one squiggle. I'm going to delete that invisible white one. So I have one squiggle in black. Now, if I come up here to my color panel, select my Blob Brush tool again, so don't select your new scribble. I'm going to come up to my swatches. I'm going to select a new color. I'm going to deselect this scribble, select a new color, do a scribble, select a new color. That was not a new color. Select a new color. It has to be on the outline. So if you're having issues, make sure it's your outline that you're changing the color. So select a new color. Another new color. Now you notice I'm layering them on top of each other, and they're all different colors. And it's always the stroke that changes color, not the fill. So then, what happens if you notice, oops, if I take my selection tool, they actually did not combine. So if you use the same color and you scribble on top, so let's say I'm going to go back to this yellow. If I use the same color and scribble on top, it will combine the shape. But if I use different colors, it keeps the shapes separate. So if you're trying to do something where you're creating multiple shapes, but they're very close to each other or even touching, you're going to have to change the colors or it will merge them together. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys the eraser tool. Okay, so the eraser tool looks like a little eraser and it's on the left-hand side here. Should be underneath your blob brush. Okay, there it is. So make sure you have it on the eraser tool. See, it looks like a little eraser. And just like with your brush tool, how you make it larger or bigger is using those brackets next to the letter P. So the right one makes it larger, the left one makes it smaller. So I'm going to make a somewhat large shape or eraser tool. I'm going to select my object here. I'm going to use my eraser tool, which the shortcut, by the way, is Shift E. I'm going to make this kind of large, and I'm going to place it right here, and I'm going to select once. Now you'll notice as soon as I erased it, it actually, instead of just erasing those points, those anchor points, it not only erased those, but it curved the shape around the spot that you erased. So you can really trim and edit things based on what you want with the eraser tool. An interesting thing is if I have this shape selected and I come over here and I erase this shape, it actually springs back. You can't erase it. You can only erase the things or the objects that you have selected. So if I go to my selection tool and I select this R, I'll close this, and then I do Shift E to bring up my eraser tool, I'm going to shrink it down. You can actually select here and erase, and you can trim off other parts. So you'll notice the eraser tool created all new vectors and paths just by erasing, but only on the objects that you have selected. Okay, so now we're going to use a combination of the two. So we're going to come down here to the bottom and you'll see Blob and Brush tool and eraser tool with this shape. Now, if you have not opened up your layers panel and you have not looked at it yet, this is what it kind of looks like right here. So you need to make sure you're on the add color layer. Now, this layer here, strokes on top, if you toggle the eye on and off, you'll notice that it is these outlines. So we want to be on the add color layer. If you cannot find your layers, go up to Window, go down to Layers, and turn it on. So you want to make sure you have the add color layer selected and that this layer here is locked. The reason why it's locked is so you can't actually mess it up. And that's going to be really helpful for coloring in things. Now we're going to grab this eyedropper tool. And what the eyedropper tool is, it takes samples of colors. So I'm going to click on this green, and if you'll notice, it actually created a sample of that color. I'm going to select our Blob Brush tool, make it a bit larger, and I am going to color on top of this line. Now you'll notice as soon as I released it, it actually went below the black outline, and that's because if you're on the add color layer, then that is below the strokes on top. So that allows you to color beneath them. So I'm simply going to kind of create this cool little color thing in here. Now I'm going to use my eraser tool and I'm going to erase a little bit. I want to get kind of close to the edge because I want to delete, oops, I want to delete all that color hanging over because I just want the color on the inside. Now I am erasing parts of, this is like a game. I am erasing parts of the outline, but that is okay because we're not actually on that layer. So as soon as I release, it goes back. And you can always go back and forth. Like if I messed up this little part here and there's white, I can go back to my Blob Brush tool and select that and fill that in. And I can go Shift E, go back to the eraser tool and erase that little part. So you can go back and forth between the tools. Now the shortcut for the eraser tool is Shift E and the shortcut for the blob tool is Shift B. And that's how you go back and forth between those two tools. Okay, so the last one, we're going to use our Blob Brush tool and we're going to color this guy in here. So I'm going to select Eye for the eyedropper tool and I'm going to select this first color here. Then I'm going to do Shift B for the Blob Brush, make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to kind of fill in this area here. And then as soon as I release it, see it's below. And you can always kind of touch it up. I'm going to select I, select Shift B. So I want you guys to simply fill in and color the rows. I'm going to play around and do this a little differently. So just creating some shadows and highlights. It does not have to be perfect. This is literally just kind of learning how to use this tool. Eyedropper tool again, select Shift B, eyedropper, Shift B, and then you can do some lighter areas. And then using Shift E, you can come in and clean some stuff up a little bit. So I want you to color in the rows as best you can. Try and be a little bit neater. I'm rushing it just for the tutorial. And you're just going to use your eraser tool to kind of come in here and clean up a little bit. And then if you need to shift back to B, to your Blob Brush tool, select whatever color you need, shift back to it, and you can refill in some areas. Okay, so go ahead and kind of color in your rows and play around with this shape here. Then when you're finished, you are going to take a screenshot of this file and you're going to submit that on Google Classroom.